Some love.
Good. How are you, baby?
Doing well, thank you. So this is part 2 to Thanatology, Bereavement, and Coping. And so in this part, we are going to go over the homework. I'm going to take us on a guided meditation that comes from the work of Gretchen A.L. Short. She is an elder in my temple, and she wrote a pamphlet called The Infamous Death Meditations that I'll be utilizing for this work. And then afterwards, we'll be talking about some specific counseling type skills that we can all use when we are working with people who are coming to us for help and for care. Does that sound good? As always, I really would love it if you had some active participation. So feel free to utilize that raise your hand function if there's something that you want to say, if there's something that you want to add, or if you want to respond to me in any way. Completely free for y'all to do that. I really love it when y'all participate. Does anyone have any questions on what we went over last night?
I watched the video this morning because I didn't make the session last night, and it was very well done.
Oh, thank you.
I did ping you on it to ask you to remind me to tell the story about my mother's fried chicken recipe.
Yeah.
You know, you were talking about family recipes and those kind of things. Oh, my mother had a fried chicken recipe that she got from a professional chef who made her sign a statement that it would never be used for profit and that she could never give it to anyone. So when she died, when I was 23, this was 30 years before I ever knew I was pagan, I started having visitations with my mother. And of all the things that a 23-year-old and forward would want to have conversations with their mother, you know, she never saw me advance at the bank. She never saw my children. She never saw a lot of milestones of my life. You would think that those would be the visitations, but no, it was always asking Mama for her fried chicken recipe. And of course, she didn't give it to me because she had signed a statement. So fast forward about 15 years after her death, and I was visiting my sister, and I asked my sister if she ever had visitation dreams with Mama. And she said, no, tell me about it. So I did. And she says, well, you ninny, I have that fried chicken recipe. And so she made a photocopy of the card that was in my mother's handwriting and gave me the fried chicken recipe. And my visitation dreams stopped. And I was so sorry that I had that recipe, because once I had it, I did not gain access to my mother again until 30 years later, when I became pagan and knew how to communicate through the higher self. So that was my fried chicken recipe story.
Thank you for sharing that. Right, Reverend Lady Lori, you had me at fried chicken. Y'all know this. So there was, Lori Blackman?
Yeah, no, me. Another funny thing about Lori's fried chicken recipe, in Utah during my first degree initiation, right after initiation that night, I had a dream, and it was me, Lady Lori, and Lord Don. And Lady Lori and I were arguing over a fried chicken recipe. And I just kept telling her, God damn it, make the friggin' chicken already. And Lord Don's yelling at us, my shoes are bigger than both of yours, shut up. That's the end of the fried chicken recipe.
Thank you.
I had to add that.
So there was some homework that was assigned last night. Can y'all just wave at me if you actually did it? All right. So I got some questions for y'all regarding this homework assignment. So brave person, use the raise your hand function if you want to have an individual conversation with me about this exercise. Hey, thank you, John. All right, so go ahead and unmute John for me, please.
Yep.
John, without sharing the content of what you actually did, which assignment did you choose?
So it was something that I had actually begun a while ago. There was a set of, it was really sort of a group facilitation thing rather than a workshop, but it was doing work of, it was called Heart, Wills, and Love Letters. And it was about really preparing for your death in a way that would continue to help you continue to do sort of bereavement work with the people that you were leaving behind. And the idea was to pick the people who were significant in your life and write them a letter about what they meant to you, about what was significant in your own life that you think they should know. Because I know in my case, my parents both died without really ever telling me very much about my extended family. And I have felt the lack of that because I can sense things about it, but I just don't know. And so, so that's the love letters part. It's about, here's what you meant to me. Here's what I want you to know about me. Here's what our family brought, to your history. And the Heart Wills thing was, part of what you asked about, is there anything that we've done to prepare by having, for example, our funeral service set up or having arrangements made for when we have, for people, if that we're leaving behind to be able to have an easier time of managing our departure, right? And so some of that I've already done in terms of, really leaving some instructions about who to contact in the tradition, how that should go, what should happen, and my expectation of what will and won't happen. Sorry, I was about to go on a tangent, but so that is already, that's in place and continues to evolve because, as I get older, as my children get older, I can put different people in charge of different things and all of that. But it's something, the way I think about it is how would I want them to have an easy time of dealing with their loss of me. I didn't do my eulogy. Well, I kind of did my eulogy a while ago because I said, well, I know what I want on my headstone, which is he had his moments, because I'd rather have somebody else write my eulogy. I don't want to write my eulogy, but I will probably get over that at some point. But, the Heart Wills aspect of it is interesting because we think in terms of who we're going to leave our stuff to, right? And I haven't completely thought through my altar materials and things like that, but I have some of that figured out. But the other part of it is, what are the gifts of spirit and of feeling and of emotion that you want to leave behind in terms of, if you're leaving something for someone, it's not just like, who am I going to leave my guitars to, right? It's there's one guitar that I have that I've had since 1971 that my oldest child saw me play, and it's a huge part of her life. And of course that will go to her, but not because it's a thing, right? It's because of that history. And so it's thinking in terms of, the heart will is bequeathing some of what you want to leave behind as a legacy of feeling and depth and relationship. So that's what I think about that.
Okay. So which assignment did you do?
So I did the part about getting things ready for it when I go.
Okay. And so in that process, can you pinpoint any particular feelings or thoughts or chain of thoughts that came up for you that guided the decision-making process?
Yes. There are people in my life who, if I left without instructions, would do things I wouldn't want them to do. So it prevents that. Right. And I thought about that. The other emotions about it were it made me really happy to think about, for example, the guitar thing. Right. Think about her having that as a part of remembering me. So there was some happiness around it. There was some sadness around it in terms of leaving behind the meaning of those things, leaving behind the meaning of all of that. I came to this work having done about 5 years of hospice work, doing Reiki treatments for patients in the field, and worked with a couple of patients for a year each, from the time I met them to the time they passed. And that gave me a perspective on this that put the fact that I was going to be going through something really front and center in my life. And so, I didn't have deep feelings of sadness, but was reflecting on, what am I going to be sad about leaving behind?
Thank you. And so what I just heard from you was that there was some happiness and some joy in the actual thing about leaving something to someone. And deeper in that, what we know about things that are important to us that we have a connection to, it carries a piece of us. So by giving these things to other people and by determining who would be appropriate for what, we are determining who is appropriate to keep that piece of us alive.
Right. Right. Because we know that our energy goes into anything that we are using constantly, right? That's what helps our tools become more powerful. And so, something like, the guitar or other things that are meaningful, there's an energy. It's almost like it actually was a part of the thought process to say, who would be the one to appreciate and resonate with that energy?
And so that tells me that it's important for the person who gets your stuff to be appreciative and have a certain level of respect for what it is that you're giving them.
Yeah, there's that, and also not wanting to burden somebody with giving them something that they don't care about.
Word, thank you. Anybody else want to have a conversation about the exercise? I will call on someone also.
I had an experience, I guess it was about 6 years ago now, of shutting down my aunt, who is the only living relative on my mother's side of the family, except myself and my sister, her condo when she went into a nursing home. And she had really nice stuff and huge volumes of family pictures that I had no idea who these people were. They had passed long before I was cognitive. And I decided then that I didn't want that same thing to happen to my children, having to make decisions about what gets passed on, what goes to good charity, and what gets thrown out. And, the following Mother's Day, I had 3 storage units at the time, and I told my kids for Mother's Day what I wanted was for them to come home for the weekend and we go through those storage rooms. And the things that they wanted when I passed, we would pack up in a box for them because they didn't have storage area to have it themselves. And their name was on it, and they made the decision right there in front of me who got what, who didn't want what. And we got everything down to one storage room, and a lot of stuff went to Goodwill, a lot of stuff went throughout. But we got that process done. When my mother was preparing to pass, she had about 9 months for that preparation from diagnosis to death. She went through her belongings and she put little tags on like her individual pieces of jewelry or travel mementos or all those kind of things, and wrote on there who she wanted to get certain things. To tell the truth, the little tags with her handwriting on them mean more to me than the object that she left us. But I have also started that process. So neither one of my children are pagan. I have a lot of pagan art. I have a lot of pagan tools. And there are people in this Zoom room that know that when I die, certain things go to them, and they're labeled as such. So I enjoy them for the rest of my life cycle, but they know that they will be getting those. And the same is true for at the temple. You know, there's certain things in the temple that need to stay with the temple as it continues on past my life cycle. But there are certain things that were very personal to me that just happen to be in the temple that will go to members of the congregation. And those are all, there's a picture and a little note for me in an envelope in the temple that they will find when I pass. That, you know, everybody in the temple will get at least one thing from me to enjoy in their pagan path. So it's very heartwarming when someone in the congregation expresses like, "Oh, Miss Lori, I'm not hoping for anything here. Don't want anything to happen to you, but if you wouldn't mind, I would like this X when you pass." And they know that they're all free to come and tell me that. And if it hasn't already been spoken for, it will be theirs. So a lot of planning can be done ahead of time to help people not have to get into those emotional decisions once you're gone.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So that brings up something super important, but I'm going to put an earmark on it. I know Lady Kai has her hand raised.
Oh, am I here? Am I talking? Okay. So I couldn't decide, so I kind of did a little bit of a lot of them. Okay, so planning my funeral. I said I wanted a Viking funeral, but the only thing that really is important is I said that.
Pause.
Are you, can you hear me?
Kai, I don't
Yeah.
want you to go into any details about the planning that you made. I just want you to talk about the process, right? And what came up for you as you were thinking about these choices.
Okay, so my process, it was kind of difficult. I do have a lot of it already pre-planned. So I would it just made me think of the little details. So then I didn't realize how much, I thought I had a lot planned already, but then I realized I didn't. So I guess it made me think that you never, even if you have it planned, that you never, you might not have enough, or you might not have gone into too much details. Because, so I was thinking with the, and then when I was thinking about my magical items and get rid of them, it made me kind of like funny and laughter, because so there's a couple that are set aside for the girls that they've said that they wanted, like my wand that Lady Bitterwind made. Rachel called that one, right away. And everything else, I just like a free for all. Everything goes there, and everybody chooses something.
Got it.
So it made me laugh thinking about people, like a rummage sale or Black Friday, grabbing items off the table.
Thank you very much. Lady Calypso, can we unmute her, please?
Hi.
Hi. So can you talk to me about what happened for you when you were doing the homework?
So I planned a little. It made me think of when both my parents passed, because they had no plans. They didn't really tell me what they want, and I didn't have time to mourn or have that process because I was too busy trying to do the decisions for them while they're not in the living. So that was a whole thing. And then I wanted to do that so I wouldn't put the burden on somebody else. And then I did my eulogy. I've written one already, which was my mother's. And I remember it was a very emotional process. It was sad, it was happy, and it was full of pride because it had all of her accomplishments. And I wanted to do just the same. So I had a lot of my accomplishments. Of course, it's sad. There's a dedication for my husband there, and a dedication to all of you.
Oh, thank you. So yes, it is very sad. And you touched on something also that's very important to think about when it comes to planning funeral rites, is that there's a lot of responsibility and a lot to be accounted for. And so this brings up the question, what responsibilities do we place on our dearly departed to have ready for us when that time comes? Not having an answer to that or not being able to think about that is a product of our proximity to death, right? So as we have moved farther away from our regular experiences with death, some of the things that we have to account for also get moved farther away from us and kind of get lost in the shuffle. And that issue of emotional decision making also comes up there. So what kind of decision making can we expect from people who are grieving the loss of their most beloved? Or if they are responsible for putting together a shindig for someone who has passed away that they might not have had the best feelings for, right? Because like, just because someone in our family passes away doesn't necessarily mean we were chummy with them. And so sometimes we are not expecting that like a cousin or an aunt or the sibling that we were least close to actually made us responsible for a lot of the things that have to happen after their departure. And so sometimes that can be translated into a form of resentment, right? Like me and this person didn't get along in life and then they stuck me with all this work and all these decisions after they passed away. That's exactly like them. And so these emotional states can absolutely impact the way that we treat the folks that we are planning for. And so then that leads me into a different part of the discussion about the importance of delegation, the importance of following instructions, and the importance of being compassionate for yourself. So if you are someone who has to plan a funeral or write a eulogy or do some kind of labor for someone who is departed, it's important to understand that things are not as they feel or appear. Resentments impact the way that we experience relationships with other people. Sadness impacts the way that we experience relationships with other people. Fear, doubt, stress, cortisol in the body, running amok, absolutely impacts our thoughts and our behaviors and our emotional state. And so that's one of the reasons why it becomes super important to start handling these things in advance. And it can be a really interesting, if not like, I don't want to say frowned upon, but like treating planning a funeral as a family activity can definitely get you some judgments, but it's absolutely a really authentic way to include your whole family in the process before the stress takes over, before the fear takes over, before the anger takes over, before any of those processes related to grief take over. It actually is super important and very helpful to think about it beforehand. And I was fortunate enough to have a 3-week long conversation with a funeral director. Yeah, I'll call it a 3-week conversation. But we talked about a lot of the things that happen behind the scenes of a funeral. So I was able to accompany this dude to the airport when he actually picked up the body that was coming back from Iraq. And I didn't get to see too much of like what was done to the body because I was not an intern or licensed, so I couldn't be involved in the process. But down to the clothes that they were wearing, hand placement, like makeup, all these things are things that we, the living, have to be responsible for. And so if we know what we want, or we can bring ourselves to think about it, that is a burden that we can remove from our loved ones when the time comes for us. Make sense? Anybody else want to talk about their homework?
My daughter and I actually have had those conversations at her behest. She spread the conversations out over many months, and we tackled one aspect of my passing at each conversation. And she is prepared now. She knows what I want. She knows what I don't want. She knows who's going to do what. She knows who she has to contact in the tradition and the world walkers. So those conversations don't have to be really heavy and depressing. They can be very loving and really get to the why behind what you want, so that you have confidence that your wishes will be carried out. Don't leave those conversations until you see death on the horizon. They can be done at any time.
Absolutely, thank you.
Lord
DJ.
DJ.
Part of my process was on who I trust. Like, I mean, my temple's mostly online, so it's just basically who I trust to keep it going. My magical tools, basically who I trust to either honor them or put them to good use, or make sure that they get to somebody that's going to use them, that's going to be appreciative of them. So, I mean, like I said, it's just all about, really about who you trust to, after you're gone, that you don't, I mean, you know, I don't know. That's just kind of where my head was a little bit, I guess.
Absolutely. So I'm certainly hearing that trust is a fundamental value for you, especially when you are passing on your legacy as a temple head and the tools that you use to do your craft.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we are in the role of helping people make these decisions in the form of pastoral care or coaching, one of the skills that I want to talk to you about that would be super helpful in clarifying what folks are asking for is a skill or a tool called reflective listening.
I want to say something. I don't know if my level of English is enough, but I want to say something. In my short experience, that process is a little bit mixed, because if it's more to the familiars, like when my dad died, it was more important for us. He died, no plans, no anything. But my uncle before died and was like a party, because he was a man of the community, a folklore man, and that was the people follow him was very important. That so it's a mix of what I want, like oh, my dad, I lost my dad, he passed and that, but it's more important what he want, but in the same time what feel all the family, what need them. You know, I don't know if it's enough to I don't know, to do the message is to peace to the familiars, indeed. A little bit to us when we go and that, but it's more the peace to the familiars here. I don't know if it's comprehensible, I say.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm not sure if there was a question in there though, or if you were just sharing that.
Patty next.
It's not
I was just
exactly
gonna share, along the same lines as what Lori was sharing about her daughter. My daughter, and just briefly, it won't take a second, my daughter told me that the greatest legacy and the greatest gift I could leave her with was to make sure that not only my wishes were known, but all the arrangements were made ahead of time. We had dealt with several family deaths within a short period of time. And as she said, Mama, please don't make me do yours too. So it is a gift and a legacy that you're leaving, not just deciding who, what, where, when, and how, but it's something I can do for her. And that's why I think it's really important to have a good, healthy relationship with death so that you can have those healthy conversations.
Absolutely, thank you. So one of the skills that I definitely want you to take away from here is the skill of reflective listening. This will be a skill that will help you draw out what folks are trying to say to you, what requests they are making, and what underlying feelings and values they are trying to serve in their requests. So reflective listening is really quite simple. It's when you listen empathically to what someone is saying to you, and then you reflect it back to them as if you are wanting to make sure that you understand completely. So in the example with me talking to Lord DJ, he was talking about trust. I mean, he said it a bunch of times, so it didn't take a lot of listening to hear what was emerging as important to him. But whenever you are working with someone on any sensitive topic, one that is heavy with emotion, one that is heavy with responsibility, you want to make sure that you are listening to what they are feeling, what they are thinking, and what they are valuing. That way you can encourage them to serve those things fully with the full weight of the present moment and the full force of their will. Now, how might we alter or expand on the skill of reflective listening as magical people? What could we do with what we hear from other people while we are counseling them, while we are helping them? Any thoughts? Who just raised their hand? Ricky.
Yes, give them feedback on what they're saying and make them feel as comfortable as possible because it's a very uncomfortable conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who said it, but talking about her daughter and how she had multiple conversations is probably a good idea as well because it takes time.
Absolutely. So yeah, we can clarify their thoughts. We can also normalize the values and the feelings that are coming up, right? So when it comes to dealing with grief or anger or depression or really any emotional state, there is no such thing as normal, right? Like that's not a real thing. Anything that we experience across the whole spectrum of human experience is legit. The only things that we really need to be concerned about to review from last night are homicidal ideation, suicidal ideation, and psychosis. And so as magical people, we can actually help the folks that we are working with add extra power to their words and add motivation when there is less of a will or less of a desire to actually act on these things, right? So I want to engage with my children on a conversation about planning my funeral. I've recently purchased my burial plot, but I don't know the right time to do it, or I don't know how to bring it up to them. Well, we can reflect on that. It sounds like you want to bring up your death wishes to your family. It sounds like it's important to you to get this conversation started, but it sounds like you're a little nervous about doing that. Is that right? Oh, yes, Phoenix, that is right. All right, well, let's see if we can charge this up a little bit and give you that boost. And then we can unleash a whole bunch of magical techniques, ritual techniques, meditation techniques to help get them moving in a direction that will get them to serve this perspective that is very important. Can anyone think of any other examples of how we can use magic or spirituality to help people get a jump start on planning things that are important or doing things that are important when high stress is involved? You got a hand raised? Go ahead.
Yeah. When I was younger, before be a Corellian, I have a Samhain ritual for my friends. In that ritual, I made a medium for they talk to the reason families pass away, and I think this is very important for one of my friends that he lost her aunt in 6 months before that the ritual, and he can talk with her through me, and this is very important for her. For she can say some things to her that they don't can say to her when she's living.
Mhm.
I think this is the kind of tools we can offer like witches.
Absolutely, thank you. Absolutely. Judy, I noticed your hand up.
Yeah, in terms of applying it with our spiritual or religious beliefs is utilizing the wheel of the year to kind of implement it. That, okay, what I hear you saying is you need to have this conversation with your family about some of your final plans. When would be a good time? How can we establish goals for when you can have that conversation? Maybe planning it around Samhain when we're already discussing death would be a good time for us to all sit down and talk about our feelings on it and what my wishes are.
Yes, nothing like cosmic context to open up the door for an important conversation. Absolutely. Thank you, Judy. Who else? I know there were 2 other hands raised, I believe. Who is this one? Someone brought up trauma. What was that? Silvana Corellian, do you mind unmuting your mic and talking about that out loud?
I don't listen to you. What do you say? Sorry.
So you brought up some trauma planning and what
Yeah,
you do when you
I think the trauma planning, it's about the familiars, what they feel when they lose some, but so anybody. I think the little kids, it's more easy all this process because you explain to them this is not wrong, this is not bad, it's normal thing. So they have more more things to have this good at normal.
Absolutely. It is essential to normalize this experience and this process, and normalize it within the context of your culture and your beliefs and what you instilled in your family while you were raising them. Absolutely. Additionally, the role of trauma is especially dynamic when it comes to funerals. So I'm pretty sure all of us have heard stories about how unresolved trauma can become problematic when we are dealing with loss and grief. Unfortunately, we have no way as helpers, as pastoral care providers, as people who are coaching and want to be helping, we have no way of really anticipating what that will look like. And so sometimes what that turns into is like in the moment damage control, right? So you appear to be struggling right now. Do you think it's a good time to maybe step away from the larger crowd and like have a moment to go through what you're going through? One of the things that we do become responsible for when we do this work is making sure that the more toxic aspects of this experience don't seep in and really kind of expand, right? Like we definitely don't want toxicity to get into the funeral water, or into the communal water for the family, right? And so it will become super important to isolate that issue and spend some time with that, even like right there in the present moment. The other thing that is important to do is to make sure that we do not talk about this experience from our own perspectives or our own points of view, right? So in the therapy world, we call this being person-centered, right? So the person in front of us is the one that's very important. It's their perspective that we want to draw out, and it is their perspective that we want to cling on to and empower to help heal. So regardless of where you stand on this continuum, irrelevant. You use that to inform you and keep you strong and empowered. However, what you want to do is make sure that you are asking questions that are directly related to what's important to the person that you are helping. Do you know why it's important to put yourself out of the way? Judy, why is it important to get out of the way when you're working with other people?
Because it's not your therapy session.
No, it's not. It is not. And it's kind of egotistical to present ourselves as an expert in someone else's condition.
Yep.
No matter where we are in our spiritual journey, no matter what level of attainment we have, it is absolutely not about us or what we believe to be true. So if we are people who believe that death is somewhere in this area for us, it's not our job to force enlightenment on someone who's over here. It becomes our responsibility to validate everyone's perspective for the role that it plays in keeping them safe and healthy and engaged in the process of living. Does that make sense? Y'all can nod if you got your cameras on. Shake your head no if you don't get it. Thumbs up, thumbs down. All right. Are there any questions about reflective listening, normalizing, or getting out of the way? All right.
Wait a minute.
All right, go ahead, Judy.
I think a good point to make is that when we're doing this, our job is to listen to hear, not to listen to respond.
Absolutely.
Yeah, too often we want to impress them with our wisdom and knowledge in an effort to be helpful. So we don't actually hear what's being said. We hear what we think they might be saying. So that's a very important of the active listening before reflective.
Absolutely. And that frees us of that burden to have to know what to say, right? Because we don't have to know what to say if we are actively listening.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I want everyone, we're gonna switch gears for a second. I want you all to start to pay attention to your breathing and get a nice little rhythm going on, and relax into whatever it is that you're sitting on. Get ready to go on a little guided meditation. We're gonna take a short journey to a place you already know in your dreams, and that soon you will know consciously as well. Your body is going to remain here, so be sure your body is comfortable and safe. Take a deep breath, hold it, and slowly let it out. Take another deep breath, hold it, relax as you slowly let it out. Breathe in, hold it, relax, breathe out. If at any time you feel threatened or frightened, visualize your personal symbol on the gate, and you will be there. Walk through to the physical world, take a deep breath, and open your eyes. If you feel lost or afraid, say your name carefully to yourself, take a deep breath, and open your eyes. As I speak, breathe slowly, deeply, listen to my voice, and as I speak, let images come up into your mind. Feel the atmosphere and learn the silent lessons that these images impress upon me. Accept the descriptions and believe in them. Where we're going is real, but it is not in the physical world. Take a deep breath, hold it, and exhale. And join me as we set out on a walk down the road. It is a well-traveled road. It's not paved, and it is in the country. There are no buildings, but there are trees and wildflowers that are growing in the tall grass. It is a pleasant day for a walk, and the ground is level. Our road curves. As we come around the curve, there is a hedge that runs along the roadside. It is tall and thick. Small, deep green leaves grow close together. We keep on down the road, and the hedge continues. Soon, you notice that there is a gateway in the hedge, and on top of it, in the front, on the gate, there's a symbol. And you recognize that as being your personal symbol. This is your gate. And so you push it open. It swings inward, revealing an opening in the hedge, looking like a tunnel. The clearing is wide enough for two people to walk through and high enough so you can just touch it if you raise your arm up over your head. This tunnel is about 6 feet deep and leads to a woods at its far end. Next to the gate is a stone. And you use this stone to prop that gate open. Pass on to the far side of the hedge, pause, look around, and look behind you. You have just crossed the threshold of the physical and astral worlds. Sounds outside on the road are silent. In the hedge are the small noises of chirping of small birds in the astral world. We have passed into a place where anything can happen, but you also know that it is a safe place because it is your own place that belongs to you. That is why when you look back at the gate, you see your personal symbol. Look at the gate now. As you do so, you know that it is also the gate of life and death. Today, you are leaving it propped open. One day, you will close it behind you. That day will mark your final journey from the body you now know, but today is not that day. And you are happy to be home. As you turn away from the gate and the hedge, you notice that there are many tall trees Some are blooming, and some have brightly colored leaves. You are in a woods. There's enough space between the trees to let in the sunlight, and the light moves as the trees rustle in the light breeze. There are small flowers growing in the broken sunlight, and in front of you is a path that winds through the woods. You start walking down the path. Now and then you step on a twig, a bird sings up above, the smell of moss and damp earth is everywhere, the smell is relaxing, and the walk is refreshing. After a while, you see ahead that the trees are ending. As you approach, you see bright sunlight on a lawn with neat flower beds around the edge of the woods. The grass feels soft and cool to your feet. Surprised, you look down to your bare feet on a perfect carpet of grass. There are bees buzzing around the flowers, and only the weeds you can see are beautiful. The air feels calm, comfortable. And just over there is a lawn chair. On the table beside it is a glass of fresh lemonade with ice. Sip it. Feel its cool, wet flavor as you drink it. When you look up, you see a house. It is exactly the kind of house you have always wanted to live in. It has enough space, but not too much. It is comfortable, and all your favorite activities are provided for. Go in and wander through the rooms. The hallway leads to a living room that is comfortable with a beautiful mantel over a fireplace. The chairs will look like they were custom made for you. Go through a door into the dining room and on into the kitchen. It is a bright, friendly place with all the conveniences you have ever really wanted. Wander on until you find the bedroom. It is a restful place and feels safe and secure. And on through all the rooms. If you don't like something, just will it to change. You can do that because that is the kind of place this is. Continue exploring the rooms in your home. On the way through the rooms, tidy things up, wipe away the dust, straighten the pictures, just a bit here and a touch there. These changes will help you out. They will tidy up your life just a bit. This is your personal home. Keep it clean and in good order. When you get to the door, look at the gardens. Tulips are growing next to the asters, all the colors you can imagine. Is it too neat? Change it. Is it too confused? Change it. You can wave your hand to make the change, or you can get your hands dirty and do the work. It's up to you. But spend some time in your garden now. It's time to go now. Return through the woods on the winding path. Now that you are more rested and relaxed, you notice things more. The smell of moss and damp earth is richer. More birds are singing. The light is sparkling. In every way, it is a perfect day. Soon enough, you reach the hedge around this beautiful estate of yours. You see in front of you the hedge, tall and green and thick with small leaves. There are small birds chirping and hopping around in it. And there before you is the tunnel through the hedge. The gate with your personal symbol on it is just the way you left it, propped open with the stone. Look back toward the garden. Feel the joy and peace that fills the special place. Remember that what you have done will make a positive difference in your life. There is a warm feeling that you can come back here whenever you wish to work or to rest and relax, to tend to the garden or to rearrange the furniture. Turn now and face the gate. As you look out at the country road, you feel a renewed interest in life, a new energy to go back and take up the work that you still need to do. The memories of your visit remain with you. They make you feel strong and alive. One day your longing to return to life will fade, and you will close the gate and return to the garden, and you will close the gate, not leaving it propped open. But today is not that day. Today you choose life. Today you pass through the gate and close behind you. Now turn and head down the road. There are trees in the area, and they are green with midsummer growth. Continue down the road a bit. As you walk along, you are aware of other people going about their business. As you walk, begin to breathe more deeply. Breathe in, hold it, and slowly breathe out. Breathe in, hold it, slowly breathe out. One more deep breath in, hold it, slowly breathe out. Slowly open your eyes, stretch your muscles. You have now returned to the everyday world. life and enjoy its challenges. That is what we are here for. So Reverend Gretchen taught me that, I can't say how long ago now. It was kind of earlier on in our relationship together. But since then, I've learned to adapt these meditations to actually create a special meeting place for people who have departed, or people who want to have special conversations and discussions. I practiced these meditations before I learned about the techniques in World Walkers. And so using it in conjunction with those actually made the journey a little bit easier for me to comprehend. So for those of you who are interested in world walking work and using the things that we learn in the World Walkers Order to enhance your work in dealing with people who are grieving or who are wanting to work with people who have passed on, I definitely think that that is something that is worth exploring as clergy members who have access to this kind of knowledge. Is anyone else in here a part of the World Walkers Order besides Lady Stephanie? DJ, who else? Oh, Lady Calypso, who else? Lady Lori. So for those of you who are World Walkers, can you talk about the way that you can imagine using some of the skills that we learned to enhance our work in helping people cope with bereavement?
I think one of the things that we can do as world walkers is not only actively listen to the incarnate, but actively listen to the disincarnate. And help them adjust to the shock if it was a sudden death, and help them feel comfortable with crossing over. We can also prearrange reincarnations and help them find the right next life cycle for them to move into. I know my children have instructions as soon as I pass to call Lady Stephanie because I have very specific wishes about my next incarnation. And she is aware of those, and the children are aware of those. And so we can help people not only plan for this side of death, but also plan for the other side of death.
Absolutely. Who else?
I think it can help with, we always work with healing the world in different aspects of the world, and we can help them cope and heal with it themselves doing the world walking. Not only can they help their ancestor or whoever's crossing over, but along with healing them, they can heal themselves as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anyone else? Thank you both. So one of the things that I have learned to do is to actually help folks return to specific parts of their lives where there were conflicts with the deceased and apply healing in that way. So to kind of untangle emotional attachments or karmic attachments that got bound up in moments of conflict. A prime example would be that I had a friend who had a really rough relationship with her mother. And when her mother passed away, one of the things that she could ruminate on, or one of the only things that she could remember, was how awful she was to her mother between the ages of 15 and 23. And she remarked to me that she must have told her mother, "I hate you," once a week for that entire span. And so using world walking and some understanding of time magic, we were able to go back to those places and gently apply some healing in those moments of time so that when we got back, that was kind of loosened up. So that is one way that you can apply some of the things that we learned to interact with people. Questions? No? Okay, so there is a book that I do want to recommend. It's called Being a Wounded Healer. The subtitle is How to Heal Ourselves While We Are Healing Others. A lot of times, my mom and a lot of the females in my family will say, ain't nothing new under the sun. And that translates to mean, in a lot of contexts, that some of the things that we experience, other people experience, or some of the things that other folks experience are also aspects of our own lives, our own characters, our own personalities. And so one of the things that we have to look out for when we're working to heal others are the way that different experiential triggers pop up and kind of hijack the work that we're doing with some people. And so this book really talks about what happens when you put on too much armor, what happens when you don't have enough armor on. It talks about the concept of mutuality, and it also talks about the highs and lows and the positives and negatives of self-disclosure when we're working with people. So self-disclosure is when you talk about things that you've experienced while you're in the process of helping someone else clarify their own experience. Sometimes self-disclosure can be helpful, and sometimes it can be selfish. And so this work actually talks about how you can recognize when it's appropriate and how to disclose your experience and some of the things that you have learned through your own process. So if you are interested in doing more of this work, I do recommend taking a look at this book. A lot of the work that I've come across in the field of pastoral counseling and pastoral care is absolutely tilted in the direction of Judeo-Christian kind of work. Unfortunately, I've not come across very many resources that systematically talks about and exemplifies how to train people who are pagan or Wiccan or magical to function in this capacity. However, for those of you who didn't participate in this workshop, in this actual Zoom function, if you were here last night and you were here today, this will count as a course that is offered in the blue door. So if you ever decide that you want to join, you won't have to take this again. Just let me know that you did take this course and I will be able to recognize it in the recording. So thank you all for coming. Open up to any last minute questions, comments, or things that you want to share. But that is the last thing that I had planned for this.
Lord Phoenix, can you give the author of that book, please?
Yes, it is Douglas C. Smith. Any other comments, concerns, considerations, thoughts?
And that was, just to verify, the Wounded Healers.
Yep, The Wounded Healer, How to Heal Ourselves While We Heal Others. Douglas C. Smith.
Make sure that you are looking for Douglas C. Smith when you look it up online, because it will come up with a few different poems by other people.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for the book, not the poems.
Correct. It was published by Psycho-Spiritual Publications.
Do you have more information on the Pagan Life Coaching Program?
The who? I don't know.
Next, if you'd like to unmute your microphone and join us. Reverend Phoenix, go ahead. You can speak with Lord Phoenix. We don't understand the question.
Oh, okay. So he mentioned there was a program that this is included as part of the class, and I wasn't sure what that was. So I assumed it was the pagan life coaching that was mentioned on the website, but I don't know any info on either one of those. So I kind of wanted to know how do we start to get information on that?
Yeah, so this is a component of the Blue Door, which I am, I'm the doorman too, I guess. So if anyone wants to learn more about gaining some life coaching and clinical skills and mixing them up with your magical education, just knock on the Blue Door, open it up, give you some more information. So you can contact me directly on that. Yo, Lady Calypso, you
We
are
both put it in.
all right, folks, enjoy the rest of the activities that are going on today. Thank you so much for coming. Also, send Reverend Lori Blackman any feedback that you have. I'm definitely interested in knowing where you think I can improve or where you think I can be a better presenter. So I'm definitely open for that. Don't be afraid to to hurt my feelings. The reason why I said send it to Lori Blackman is because she is not afraid to hurt my feelings. So keep it real, and I would absolutely appreciate that.
I will be honest with him. I promise.
All right, folks, deuces.
Love you. Thank you so much, Lord Phoenix. Thank you all for joining us, and continue on to the next workshop. Some are already in progress.